Major changes are coming to the Minnesota Timberwolves as the new ownership group of Alex Rodriguez as well as Marc have now spoken out and revealed their plans for managing and operating this Timberwolves organization as well as the Minnesota Lynx. And they had some very, very interesting insights, which frankly has a lot of Timberwolves fans excited about the new direction, the new ownership of this team. So we're going to break down what they had to say in their introductory press conference, what it means for the changes coming to this Timberwolves team, and why a lot of fans are getting behind the things that are being said by this new ownership group. So lots of stuff to really dive into. Make sure you come to the end too, because there's a few things that are getting missed by a lot of the main Timberwolves outlets. So we'll dive into all that in this video. But before we dive into it, folks, again, over 99% of our viewers haven't hit that subscribe button just yet. I appreciate every single one of you that are tuning into this new Timberwolves channel we have out here on YouTube. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss a single thing that's going on with this T-Wolves team. But let's dive into it. It's free. You can hit that button down below. But let's dive into it because there was a lot of quotes coming out from Alex Rodriguez as well as Marc in terms of how they're feeling about the new officially becoming the owners of this T-Wolves franchise, and they dove into a lot. So let's jump into the big stories first. So the first thing that I'm seeing going around a ton is a rebrand coming to the T-Wolves, essentially saying that we've done a lot of work in the background. I think our fan base is going to be very, very excited. Bringing back some of the history with the KG days is something we're very aware is important to our fan base. And that is very positive. That's really cool. Again, some people love the blue highlighter, all that, the new style of T-Wolves jerseys. Some people are not a big fan of it. Of course, everything comes with taste and stuff. But having a rebrand, especially for a new era of T-Wolves basketball, where this team has been ultra competitive, has been winning a ton. It's I've been one of the apologists for this current jersey style, which is being rocked by this team here now at this point. I'm definitely always open to a rebrand. It feels like every team across the NBA has that circle logo and stuff, and everything looks similar and all that. I don't think the T-Wolves by any means have one of the worst jerseys in the league. But, I like the style. I like that. I like some of the different styles. But there's a huge portion of the fan base that wants to see that rebrand happen. So that's a positive there. Again, not specific to basketball, but that's an interesting development that can happen with this team. And one really interesting thing as well. We'll get to the basketball stuff as this podcast goes along. But basically, one of the very interesting things also brought forth is how the T-Wolves are developing an app that essentially allows people, because we all watch the games and see especially random games in March where you're playing some trash team. There are times throughout the season where there's a bunch of seats open out there in the lower bowl. And this doesn't happen just for the T-Wolves, but it happens literally across every single sport. And there's a lot of people, a lot of fans, a lot of the most rabid fans are out there at the top sections. Anyone that's watched a sporting event knows that that's usually the rowdy spot at all of these sports events. So they're adding this new ticket thing that essentially you can, in mid-game, if no one goes to that seat or the guy doesn't show up for the seat down at the bottom, you can buy that seat. You can move up. Hey, pay $50 and then you're in the lower bowl or something for the second half. Very, very interesting stuff that feels like it's getting rolled out for the T-Wolves. Again, not crazy development in terms of the basketball front, but an interesting thing nonetheless. But what's going on in terms of the basketball side of things? Because Alex Rodriguez had some very, very interesting comments in terms of what the expectations are for this T-Wolves team. We'll talk about the KG stuff after. But basically, the first thing that he discussed is, the plan out there on the basketball court. As he came out and said that organizations sometimes overestimate what they can do in the short term and underestimate what they can do in the long run. We can make decisions today knowing the ramifications they'll have over the next 5 to 10 years versus going for it all at once. We have to thread the needle between being aggressive when it's time, but also being disciplined about running good business and surrounding Ant and our young players with the best people around them on the court and off. Now, I found this very, very positive. There's some people running with this in a different direction in terms of, they're not going to be aggressive. They're not going to do this. It's an excuse to not build around Ant and stuff. I didn't take that any other way. I don't know how it's getting interpreted on that front because this team was very aggressive in the offseason. You can't argue that they were not. They were willing to, negotiate cap to figure out stuff. They did have to give up Nah, but, they were able to re-sign, both Naz Reid as well as Julius Randle to very, very significant contracts when this team is paying a lot of money. It's the reality. Now, the T-Wolves are a championship contender, so they should be in this space. The fan base would be outraged if they didn't. It wasn't like a tough decision in terms of basketball-wise or anything like that, but they did have to spend in order to keep those guys. You had the Bill Simmons of the world saying there's no world that Naz Reid is back out there on this roster. People were saying you can't even keep two of Naz Reid or Julius Randle, and they were able to do it. They were able to set things up and put this team in a position to be competitive for a very, very long time. So that's what this ownership group did. They were aggressive. They did the right things. And, of course, you can't keep everyone. And there are some specific cap implications. And that's what I like about his comments. Because if the T-Wolves are going to come out and you have the new ownership syndrome, and we saw it with the Phoenix Suns, with Matt Ishbia down there. You get a new owner and they want to take some massive swings, and they just completely turn your roster upside down. They change everything. They do this, they do that. And then things don't work out in the long run. And the Suns are, I think they salvaged that situation neatly, at the end with the Kevin Durant stuff. But given the money they spent, given the assets they gave up, they are not nearly the position that, the T-Wolves are, or one of these top teams in the Western Conference are now at this point. So I like that methodical approach. And, he drawed a comparison to OKC, saying, basically saying continuity is a big part as well. One of the biggest arbitrage opportunities in sports right now is in our game is continuity. You saw that with OKC this year. That's a good role model for us and other teams. So, of course, some people have heard that as well, taken out of context. Oh, they're going to try to be like OKC. They're going to try to tank. New ownership. They're going to try to lose. All that stuff. That's not what he's saying. Continuity, building up this squad, building up this team, and not making any rash decisions. Now, there was a bunch of Kevin Durant rumors with the T-Wolves, and, that's an interesting swing, and you can make an argument that actions don't match the words. But I digress on that point. Overall, what he's saying about continuity, playing it smart, playing it safe, especially when you have a guy like Anthony Edwards on your roster, on your team, you don't want to just make one decision to throw away 2-3 years of contention when you have a top 5, top 10 player out there in the NBA on any given season. You don't want to do that. Anthony Edwards has a real chance of being the face of the NBA, be the best player out there in the coming years, and you don't want to make decisions that can hamper the development of this team, hamper the depth, hamper anything like that when you have those opportunities. So I like this approach. I like this thing there. There's a few of these quotes are getting taken out of context, but I've actually litigated to how well they play. And this one is the one that's most being talked about because he said, I'm still at the beginning stages of my learning curve, learning the game of basketball, but I'm a student of the game of baseball. While 70% of it doesn't transfer, 30% of it does. And that's culture, and that's treating players with high integrity. And some people, again, why are you owning a team, a basketball team? You don't know what's going on with the team. This is bad. We have, someone doesn't know what they're doing, flying the plane and all that stuff. This is probably what you want from an ownership group. You want someone that's passionate. You want someone that cares about the team, the players, winning, all that type of stuff, the culture. You want your owner to care about that. But honestly, you'd rather them not have a clue what's going on in terms of roster, in terms of moves, in terms of transactions and stuff, because that makes it way more likely that they're going to be hands-off. You're not going to see Alex Rodriguez come in and be, if he's openly admitting to the fan base, I'm still learning the game of basketball. I'm still getting my feet wet in terms of everything that's going on. It would shock me. It would be a level of delusion, which I don't think this ownership group has whatsoever. From everything we've heard, we've had everything come out. It would be a next level of delusion to not know what's going on and be like, okay, I think we should trade Rudy Gobert for this, and I think we should trade Dante DiVincenzo for this. I think we should do all that. That's not going to happen. These guys are too competent. They're coming in. They're not cheap. They've proven that with their wallets already. They're going to come in and do their best to improve the business, which we saw and we talked about at the top of this. And they're going to try to, build up a culture, build up the right things, and trust Tim Connelly. When you have an exec, a president that can do the things Connelly does, you trust that man. And you hope ownership doesn't meddle. So I think that's a positive, right? We don't have an ownership group that's, I'm a former pro athlete. I can come out here and give my take in terms of what should be going down, what should happen. So that's a huge positive. That's a huge, huge positive. And the last thing that we're discussing on here is essentially news also come out that Marc and Alex Rodriguez have expressed that they want to grow a better relationship with Kevin Garnett in respect to the Timberwolves franchise. And that's something everyone has wanted. Game 1 of this season, KG should have his jersey retired by the T-Wolves, but I digress. We'll see how those things play out. That is a very sticky situation that dates back years. Could be cuts deep. We thought it may have been solved when he was traded back from this team, and then things got messy with the ownership stuff. It's a lot of weird stuff going on with the history of KG and this T-Wolves squad. But no one could argue he's one of the top players out there in T-Wolves history, and deserves his respect, deserves his cred, deserves his love from the organization the same way he does from the fans. So, lots of stuff happening from these quotes. Let me know what you guys think about this. Lots of changes coming to this team, and I believe them to be positive from previous ownership groups. Let me know what you guys think. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.